I will now hand over the call to Mr. Anuj Khanna Sohum for his opening remarks. Over to you, Anuj.
Thank you, Hardik, and a very good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the call today. I trust all of you are keeping safe and that your families and colleagues are all in good health. We celebrated our first IPO anniversary on 8th of August with a full-day board meeting and by announcing our Q1 results the same evening. With the backdrop of tough macroeconomic factors and the COVID-19 pandemic, I must say I'm relieved that the toughest quarter is behind us now. The resilient nature of business, our entrepreneurial culture, and our execution focused on Apple 2.0 strategy has actually made us come out stronger from this crisis. And I'm confident and committed to achieve sustainable growth as we build Apple 2.0 over this decade. In Q1, Apple delivered 20.4% year-on-year growth in revenue from operations. And personally, I'm not satisfied, as I aimed to open the innings for this financial year with a century, 100 crore in revenue, and we missed that due to COVID-19. However, we bounced back in June, and our CPCU business organically clocked over 1 crore per day, and we achieved an overall quarterly run rate of over 108 crores as of June end, and that exceeded my expectations and my team's expectations. Taking a deeper view, April and May were very different and difficult months, but we did see strong overall demand from both India and international markets across the key industry verticals. And with the fundamental shift happening in consumers' lifestyle towards mobile screens, connected devices, I remain optimistic of the emerging growth trends. And I strongly believe that we will achieve well beyond the century mark in terms of revenues in every quarter here onwards. In terms of profitability, the overall trend was positive. We delivered a PAT growth of 42.3% year-on-year, majority of it coming organically. I'm also pleased to announce that our inorganic strategy has delivered results. We cross-leveraged business opportunities with bottom-line efficiencies, resulting in around 5 to 6% of our PAT from both Appnext and MediaSmart. With a faster turnaround in the acquired businesses, we aim to achieve around 8 to 10% PAT on both Appnext and MediaSmart in this financial year itself. We've also strengthened the two V's, verticalization and vernacular, as the main pillars of our Apple 2.0 strategy. Our verticalization focus on COVID-resilient categories E, F, G, H resulted in over 90% of our Q1 revenues from the 10 key industry verticals versus 76% contribution from these verticals in Q4. Our vernacular strategy and focus enabled us to identify multiple areas of ecosystem-level innovations, and we closed the strategic investment in OS Labs to own equity in the largest indigenous languages-focused mobile app store in India. Our long-term focus remains on strengthening our foundation and building sustainable market leadership in India and other emerging markets globally. And we also augmented our Apple 2.0 culture with the launch of AFL, Apple Fun League, where all Applers come together to commit, collaborate, compete, and celebrate beyond the regular work and conference calls and webinars. So Apple 2.0 is guiding our culture, our strategy, and our growth journey for the decade ahead. We are a differentiated business with a unique culture, growing profitably and increasing our positive cash flows performance consistently. With that, I would like to hand over this discussion to our CFO, Kapil Bhutani, to discuss the financial performance. Thank you, and over to you, Kapil.
Thanks, Anuj, and thanks everyone for being on the call. In Q1 financial year 21, the company reported revenue from operations of rupees 898 million on a year-on-year growth of 20.4%. This growth has been broad-based across India and international market and across industry verticals, as Anuj highlighted. Our EBITDA for this quarter stood at 225 million, an increase of 20.3% year-on-year, and EBITDA margin was at 25% in line to our Q1 margin last year. In terms of OPEX, inventory and data cost was at 57.5% of revenue from operations, in line with the previous annual trend. On employee benefit expenses, they have increased primarily due to acquired businesses. Further, in FY21, we are confident of achieving continuous growth, and such pro rata variable payout to the employees have also been provisioned in this quarter, which is expected to be paid out during the rest of the year for their actual performance. This has also led to increase in expenses on quarter-on-quarter basis. We have reduced certain other expenses, including rentals, during the quarter, leading to absorption of incremental expenses from the acquired businesses without any increase on quarter-to-quarter basis. Our PAT for the quarter was 188 million, an increase of 42.3% year-on-year. PAT margin stood at 20.4% as compared to 17.6% Q1 last year and 18.3% Q4. Our focus has always been on working capital management. Even in times of COVID, our collection efforts have been resilient. In Q1, company acquired 66.67 equity ownership in Appnext Singapore and its full control, with a clear path to acquire 100% ownership upon attainment of mutually agreed growth targets. With this acquisition, Affle International now has a new subsidiary based out of Singapore. We also identified Indus OS as a potential investment opportunity during the quarter and executed a definite agreement on 2nd July to acquire 8% strategic stake in Indus OS, India's largest independent indigenous app store. The completion of the agreement was done last week only. As of 7th August 2020, Affle International has availed a term loan of $10 million for a period of 4 years and has drawn $6 million out of the availed amount. The loan is secured by SBLC, procured by Affle India, and 30% shareholding acquired in Appnext Singapore. The cost of the funds is LIBOR plus 3.25. With this, I end my presentation. Let us please open the floor for the questions.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Hardik Singani from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead. Mr. Hardik, your line is in talk mode. Kindly go ahead with your question.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity. I have a thematic related question. In this quarter, we would have seen increased traction within our mobile advertising offerings where there would have been newer clients or clients who didn't have much of a digital wallet fitting. So how are we seeing traction within those clients? How has been their experience, and do we see their spend to be more of a permanence in nature, or is it transitory and it like when things come back to normalize, they would again go back to their channels that they were previously using? Hi.
Well, thanks for that question. The thematic view that I have, and it was always a long-term mega trend, that a lot of new advertisers as well as existing advertisers would start increasing their spends towards mobile marketing in line with how the consumers are spending time on their mobile devices and screens and connected devices disproportionately. What has happened in April, May and the lockdown phase is that the consumer adoption has reached its peak, right, in terms of how much time people are spending on these devices. And I don't see that changing, right? So it is a trend that was always expected to happen in terms of how many people will go on smartphone devices, how much time they'll spend, what kind of services will they start adopting, and how much will they start making payments using online apps and services on their mobile devices. And those trends are long-term trends. They are not trends that will reverse or turn down. What has happened is that the acceleration of adoption has happened in this period. So whatever we were expecting would happen in, say, 3 to 5 years is likely to happen in, say, next 2 to 3 years. And the timeline for this adoption and acceleration has actually come down, right? So speed at which the consumers are adopting, and consequently the businesses are reacting to that and shifting their budgets to mobile marketing. And my short answer is that I don't see that trend reversing from the business side, backed by the consumer trend. And therefore, we should continue to expect that the percentage of mobile marketing as an overall pie of any advertiser will only increase, and it should not see a reversal.
Okay. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Venkatesh B from Tokio Marine Asset Management. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. When I actually look at your numbers, your standalone numbers or your India numbers have grown really fast, the revenues, whereas your international revenues have not grown that much. But when I look at your margins, the India margins have contracted, whereas your international margins have gone up. So it doesn't really make sense. Can you help us throw some color on this? That is the first question. And secondly, what was the cash flow from operations in the current quarter?
So I'll take that question first, and Kapil, then you can add on to it. So when you look at the overall quality of business, whether in India or in international, the range of growth on year-on-year quarter Q1 to Q1 basis is in the international has grown about 18%, India has grown about 22%, or basically the average growth being 20.4%. So I think that is largely a balanced growth overall. When you look at it from a, let's say, margin perspective, if you look at the data and inventory cost level, I think we are trending along fairly across these markets. And when we go and drill down further into, let's say, the operating expenses, what has happened in India versus in international, then you would see that on certain line items, whether it's the employee cost, which I think Kapil covered in his presentation earlier, that last year in Q4, some of the targets were obviously under-attained, and in Q1 as well as this whole financial year, our view is very optimistic that we will achieve our goals for this year. Consequently, employees should earn all their variables and so on. So it's a fully loaded cost with provisions for variable on an annualized and quarterly basis for this financial year. So in Q1, you see that difference. And you also see that the other expenses have gone up. So I'll let Kapil come into here and explain the transfer pricing related matters.
So adding to what Anuj has said, if you see India standalone, there is a spike in the other expenses, which is largely related to intercompany transfer price adjustment based on the latest transfer price pricing benchmarking. This benchmarking is updated every year. Since we are adding more subsidiaries and more international manpower and more contribution is happening, so there is an update into transfer pricing. And based on the transfer pricing, the markups between the intercompany have undergone a change, and some transactions have also been added. So based on that, the intercompany expenses have gone there. Largely the spike in the other expenses, I will say 80% of the spike of the other expenses is attributed to transfer pricing arrangements between the companies, in the group companies.
Okay,
which is eliminated in the consolidated accounts.
Okay. Just on the revenue part, I mean, I think it was mentioned that both of them have more or less grown at the same pace, India and outside India. But if I look at your consolidated segmental numbers, India revenues have grown to almost 42 crores from 30 crores, which is like a 30% growth, whereas outside India is at 49 crores versus 45 crores, which is like a sub 10% growth. So is there a transfer pricing thing even in the revenues part?
So I'll update that also. In the Q1, there was certain contracts which were serving India last year, Q1. There were certain contracts outside India which were serving Indian customers. They have been re-signed from the Indian entity this year. So if you see our Q2 presentation, which was after the first presentation of the company after listing, we had a 50-50 kind of revenue from India, delivery from India and international. But whereas the financials, if you see last year Q2 financials, the H1 financials, you would see that difference. So the contracts have been re-signed from Indian entity, which were being delivered in India and in line with the transfer pricing again. And that is why you are seeing a little higher spike of growth in India. which is normalized by signing those contracts from Indian entity.
Okay. Just that other question which I asked about cash flows from operations, I'm trying to figure out how have collections been. Have you had issues in terms of collections going up, or collections have been okay and cash flow operation is positive?
The cash flow operation is positive. The cash flow operation is positive. Yes, we have acquired new businesses. The working capital has slightly increased on that part, on the international business side. Also, there are very few customers who have posed us an issue on making the payments. However, we feel that the provisions or the provisions made in the books is adequate to cover any exigencies.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Dinesh Pathak from Goldman Sachs. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for taking the question, and congratulations on good numbers. Just trying to understand the organic growth. So on the reported revenues, if you can just carve out the MediaSmart and AppNext and Revex contribution, which was probably not there in the base, and then just give us the number.
Kapil, do you want to go ahead?
I can take this question. Yeah. So Dhiren, basically, MediaSmart and AppNext together have contributed about 17 odd crore rupees in the top line in this Q.
And Revex also, if I understand correctly, was not there in the base.
Revex partially was since we were in discussions already when we were doing Revex. So partial businesses had started getting tested. So the impact would be about a crore, about 1.5 crore rupees net impact from there.
1.5 crore?
Yeah, net impact from there.
Okay.
In this quarter,
then there is a slight degrowth on an organic basis, right? Mid-single digit degrowth.
I will say it is almost the same.
Okay.
Nearly the same, because if you see our COVID call, we were expecting a larger degrowth, right? Whereas the company has not allowed it to happen, and we have performed much better than what we expected in our COVID call.
Yeah. I mean, I think versus the COVID call, you would have done better. But I'm just saying, if I take out 17 and 1.5, revenues would come out to be around 71.3 versus 74.6. In the base quarter.
Yeah.
So there is about a 4% degrowth. Obviously, this being a tough quarter of lockdown, so that context I get. But just from a math point of view, it's a 4% degrowth, right?
Yes.
I think the important analysis here, which is what I was trying to allude to earlier in my conversation, that when you look at the quarter April, May, June, the most important numbers to rely on or to look at, organic or otherwise, or whichever way, in terms of modeling, and that's what we are also doing internally, is to look at where are we ending the quarter? What is the run rate? How are we ending June? Because while it's the quarter and it is the way math has to be done, the quarter had two distinct, periods, April and May, and then June. And in the month of June, when we look at it, the organic growth of the CPCU business itself, like I mentioned, we always look at it that, the 1 crore a day kind of a target and goal post, and we achieved that on an aggregated basis for the CPCU business overall in the month of June organically. And when we look at it from a broader picture, then the business is already at run rate of north of 108 crores plus. So so when you're looking at how is the quality of the business or the growth, I would say the month of June has exceeded most of my expectations. While of course April and May and June together, the Q1 results have come out respectable. But what is most important is where have we ended the quarter and what is the run rate with which June is taking us forward. So if we were to segment this and slice and dice it and say June versus June, and let's look at it, you would see a very, very fantastic uptrend, and it would exceed at least all our internal expectations as well. So I think the lens of looking at it that way is very important. And for the inorganic contributions, it is also important now to what do we take out from here and what do we expect going forward. It is again something I commented on earlier, that both MediaSmart as well as Appnext, which were when acquired were just barely breaking even or still loss making, have actually contributed 5 to 6% of the total PAT that we have reported for this quarter, which also exceeded our expectations, right? I mean, in terms of the full year, I'm now even more confident that we will end with both MediaSmart and Appnext contributing on a independent standalone basis about 8 to 10% of their business would be, delivering that kind of PAT. And that is giving us a lot of confidence that all businesses that we have today are fully turned around and the outlook is positive, and the trend lines and the run rates at which we are today are also quite positive as of what June has delivered for us.
Okay. That is helpful, Anuj. So this 108 crore, you're saying this is on a full company revenue basis or just the CPCU business?
Just the CPCU business.
Okay. And this CPCU for the quarter, the presentation has mentioned 17 million. Now that would also include a small contribution from Appnext, right? So if I
that is correct.
Share, how much is Appnext? Roughly be 2 million in that range?
No. So Appnext, as we had mentioned in the Appnext related call that we had, I believe we had that call around that period. So it's about 7 crore odd, which is coming from Appnext, about $1 million.
I'm talking in terms of number of CPCU users. So those would be on that 17 million for the quarter reported in the presentation. About 2 million would come from Appnext.
I can tell you that. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right. Yes.
Yeah. So this number, adjusted for Appnext, is down like 10%. Obviously, I get the context that it was a very bad lockdown, and in that context, it is very commendable. But this adjusted for Appnext, this number, are you seeing that 25% growth that we were used to, talk about, that the CPCU users can grow in that 20s? So now in July, in that, organic run rate basis, is that also back to that level?
It is more than that, because like I mentioned that we did organic CPCU business, non-Appnext CPCU business at about 1 crore a day in the month of June itself. So that's the actual realized sort of attainment level, which is over 30 crores in the month of June itself, right? We have historically never had that level of run rate in the organic CPCU. If you just look at June to June, you will not see organic CPCU has come down. But if you see June to June, you would see that it has grown faster than what any of us had ever guided or expected.
Okay. And just one more question. So in terms of the operating cash flow, what was the absolute number, and what was the intangible, capitalization for the quarter?
Can you repeat the question again?
The operating cash flow, for the quarter, and then, the intangible capitalization for the quarter?
The intangible is in line with the last year itself. It's about 1.2 million kind of a figure, the capitalization. And the cash flows have been positive, and they are better than the Q1 last year. We have a cyclical impact on the cash flows. The cash flows are heavily skewed towards Q3, Q4. However, the cash flow for the current quarter is about, about 3 crores positive working capital because of the heavy sales in June versus April, May. A lot of collections that happen in July also. So we are not very, you can say the cash flows are very positively skewed now at the moment.
Yeah, but what is that number, Kapil, like the absolute number in terms of crores?
Absolute number is about 3.5 after tax.
3.5 cash flow from operations for the quarter, and 1.2 million USD is the intangible capitalization. Okay. Okay, thank you. I'll get back in the queue.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Mayank Babla from Dalal and Broacha. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everybody, and congratulations on a good set of numbers. I just had a few questions. One of them is the employee expenses. This time around, as you said, was due to the acquisition of Appnext, so there was an increase. What is the final employee count as of the last quarter? And how much have we added in the organic business, and how much have we imbibed from the acquisition?
So the employee count is over 375. It's 375 employees plus in the company at the moment, and I'm counting in any contract staff or whatever. I'm not just sort of classifying it in any particular manner. We treat every employee with sort of equal regard, irrespective of the nature of engagement with them. And your question is the second part of your question. I couldn't really catch in terms of what you meant about. Can you say that again, please?
Excluding Appnext, did we add more employees?
Yes, we added a few more employees. In fact, on the senior management side, we made a couple of announcements over this period, and I'm not exactly clear on the dates, whether they were within the quarter or just post the quarter. But we hired somebody fairly senior to lead the SaaS and omni-channel platforms. His name is Joy, and he's the Chief of Marketing and Omni-channel Platforms. And we also brought on board Marjay, who is a Chief Revenue or Chief Revex Officer, to drive the Revex business globally. And he has also joined us in a leadership role in the company. And a few other members in the data science team in Bangalore and the product management team, as well as in the data and platforms team. So we have definitely strengthened the data side of our organization over this quarter. And all of these are announced in the press releases that the company made at various times when these people had joined.
Okay. Thank you for that. And the second question was regarding the non-CPCU business. So this time the non-CPCU contributed around 20.7% of the consumer platform versus the last quarter was around 8.6%. So could you just throw some light, and I wanted your opinion on that?
Sure. So if you see that the CPCU business bounced back significantly in the month of June, and consequently, what we were doing a lot more in April and May was, let's say, if the consumer conversions are not happening as such, if people are locked down, they can't get deliveries to their homes and so on, then we were also selling a lot more platform as well as the non-CPCU business. Plus, the MediaSmart part of the business is completely, or mostly, I would say 90% is non-CPCU. So it is going in the SaaS and PaaS related business unit. Having said that, if you were to just look at the month of June, right, then you would see that the trend lines are back where the CPCU business would be over 90% of the total sort of consumer platform business. So the quarter has to be looked at that June is giving us a forward run rate and is providing better sort of guidance on how the balance would be. Whereas the quarter April, May, June, April and May, we were fine-tuning our strategy towards focus a lot more on the COVID-resilient categories. And while we were recalibrating our focus on those categories which delivered outcomes in the month of June, resulting in 90% revenues coming from those categories, in that period of time, we were also trying to push more customers and saying that instead of giving us a conversion related business, let's shift some budgets more towards branding or SaaS and PaaS, because one wasn't sure, how much conversions the consumers would actually be doing, given that they were, in a lockdown situation and they couldn't necessarily have things delivered to their home and so on. So I think there is a balance shift that happened in the quarter. But when you see it again from a lens of June, based on the numbers that I've already shared with you so far, you would find that the CPCU business is back and exceeding our expectations in terms of the overall ongoing trend lines.
Sure. Thank you so much. I'll get back in the queue. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rishit from Nomura. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. So Anuj, just wanted a clarification. You mentioned about 33 odd crores would have been in June, and that is excluding Appnext. So when you add just Appnext, it'll be 6 crore additional. So just June itself contributed roughly about 40 crores as a run rate basis. Is that correct?
Yeah. So on the CPCU business, the run rate, to be precise, would be around 38 crores, right, together with the Appnext on the CPCU business. And with the non-CPCU business, yes, the June number is about 40 crores.
Okay. And from June onwards, how is the traction overall, right, from this number where we're talking about 38 crores, right? How's the traction going into the next quarter? Because I think obviously the lockdown is sort of taken off, right, in large part of the geographies, right? So and plus we have those 90% of the 10 categories which contribute about 90% of the revenues, right? All of them are sort of taking shape well. So how do you see the traction going into this quarter? Because I think 40 crores itself goes to about 120 crores in the next. So you'll be definitely well above the century. But just wanted to understand how much upside can we see from that perspective, and how will the organic business shape up?
Right. So a few things again for the last quarter. The trend that we are checking closely, and we have done that in July, and we have already through some part of August now, at least the 3rd of August is done. We were checking that was it a pent-up demand, for the CPCU business where April and May was held back, and then everybody was trying to kind of, get their budgets for the quarter and make that good, right, in terms of gap. Was it that, or is it now a baseline trend that will carry through, in terms of where things are? So I believe that's what you're trying to also assess. And what we have seen in July and August is that the momentum is carrying through, so I'm never giving any short-term guidances, but since the last quarter has to be sliced and diced into April, May, and June, and once you start talking about June, most of us can do the math that it's about 40 crores per month kind of a run rate going forward, and it reaches the math of times 3 is 120 crores and so on. But I would say that that's a defensible momentum that we have seen even in July and August. So I'm keeping fingers crossed, but all directional trend lines are fairly strong at the moment.
And just wanted to understand the shift of from CPCU to non-CPCU. Are we seeing some of the platform-related sales, SaaS and PaaS-related sales sort of staying up, or is there a definite momentum there, or do you think that that will sort of give its way back to CPCU business going into the next say 2 or 3 quarters, or there would be some sustenance there?
I think SaaS and PaaS is a long-term strategic emphasis, and the sales cycles are a bit longer there. But I would think that this year it would still be at a nascent stage, sub 10% surely. So it would not become, a meaningful, let's say, part of the stay, and over 90% should continue to be, let's say, CPCU business in the consumer platform business. That's how our assessment is. And having said that, whether it's CPCU business, it's obviously a very valuable and strategically important, growth trend for us there. But also on the SaaS and PaaS side of the business, I'm personally very excited about the possibilities for the long term there. And we are actively, organizing ourselves internally to ensure that becomes a real segment and a big contributor going forward into the Apple 2.0 journey ahead.
Okay. And then just one last question. Just want to understand on the capitalization bit, right? I mean, so I think Kapil mentioned is close to about $1 million, right? This quarter as well. So what is that related to again? Because I think we did. So again, it's related to all the product development work that's happening in the subs business, or and how should we think about capitalization going into the next? Given we've acquired Appnext, how should we think about going through the year?
So this is going to be the trend for the year also. It is not going to spike from here.
So it's close to be $1 million every quarter.
Million in a quarter, or $1 million maximum in a quarter. We don't expect to that. Yeah.
We as an organization have kept a very strong balance and have always been, if I may say, fully loaded in terms of the talent, the manpower resources, and so on. So what you heard from me earlier also in one of the questions was that we have only strengthened the top management related functions because the business is growing fast, is growing globally, and we see a lot of these platforms contributing meaningfully now. So that's a very, very positive and an important sign to note that how the company is operating and how are we thinking, right? Even in the COVID situation, we did not do any pay cuts. In fact, we are provisioning all the variable and bonuses for this financial year on a pro rata basis for Q1. The employees are also feeling bullish that, we will attain targets, we will make our, variable and bonuses this year. So there is a lot of optimism, and they're obviously saying that, we are strengthening the team. So since we are, let's say, fully loaded and the organization, the team and our structure is complete, you don't see too much of a variance happening in terms of the cost, right? So it's, the trend line should be fairly predictable, and there shouldn't be any dramatic changes there, whether with respect to, development of products or, any other, let's say, significant investments on the management here.
So from a longer term, 30 crores is like the number to look at from a capitalization bit yearly, right?
Yeah, yes. This was also stated in the last call also, and this is going to be the focus of the company to optimize the cost and to bring out new offerings to the customers to sustain the momentum of growth.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll get back into you. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Madhu Babu from Centrum Broking. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sir, what is the net cash position after Appnext acquisition?
Mr. Babu, can you speak closer to the handset, please? Your voice is not audible.
Yeah, hi, sir. So what is the net cash on balance sheet after Appnext acquisition, and how are we looking at future acquisitions?
The net cash position on the balance sheet, just give me a minute, I'll tell you, because we had given in my summary at the start of the call, we have also procured a 10 million loan from the bank, which is availed as of Friday. We have availed about 6 million of that, which is in line to a partial funding for the Appnext, right? And the cash flow, the cash position as a balance sheet and as of today would be a little different because of that borrowing we have done. It's a 4-year term loan we have done. I'll just give you the cash position. Okay.
Mr. Madhu Babu, hello.
Yeah. So, and just on the other geographies apart from India, so we have talked earlier.
It's about 11 million as on. It's about 11 million as on 30th of June.
Yeah, so that is the cash and there's a debt as well, right? So net cash would be minimum.
Debt is not there. Debt is only from the holding company as on that date. That is also there. But yes, 11 million is cash balance. There is a debt from the holding company, which is there to the tune of about 6 million.
Okay. And in terms of international geographies, so which are the areas where we are investing? Which are the countries where we are investing and seeing a higher traction?
Right. So we are seeing very good traction in Southeast Asia market. We are seeing very good traction also in some of the European markets thanks to MediaSmart. And we had also mentioned that one of the reasons to invest in MediaSmart was because we were looking at a team that is culturally aligned towards giving a launch pad for us into LATAM markets, into emerging markets. So overall, in terms of our strategy and also in my commentary earlier, you would have seen our emphasis is clearly India being a sustainable market leader in India and also expanding that into other emerging geographies. So Southeast Asia, Middle East, Africa, LATAM, and now with the MediaSmart team, we are also looking at greater inroads into Europe. So these are the geographies where we're focused. In North America, we are taking carefully calibrated steps, in terms of expanding our presence there remotely at this point in time, and maybe hire a couple of people through this year as we go along. We've also onboarded one person to work with us in the Korea market because we are seeing quite a lot of interesting customers and possibilities coming there for a partnership to expand into that market. So these are all very recent developments, but I would say, we are looking at ourselves as a global company, and that's why the management team has strengthened to bring certain people on board, whether in terms of marketing and omni-channel platforms or on the RevX platform, so that we can really use our platforms which are global in nature to win business in other geographies as well. We have also seen that some of the competitors across the world, because of the COVID situation, who were not as resilient or were not as bottom line efficient, were of course a little bit stressed. So there's a lot of talent available for us to hire. There is a lot of customers that we can win from competitions and newer markets. So we are opportunistically tracking that and making sure that we are resourceful about it and we don't miss out any low-hanging fruits and opportunities anywhere in the world.
Sir, with that intent, would the balance sheet be enough, or would we look for any further infusion of through equity, in terms of to rapidly expand into some of these newer geographies? Would we look at that as an option?
I mentioned in my concluding remark that we have always been cash flow positive as a company. So I expect that the operations of the company will only add cash into our bank account, and unless we are doing any further equity investments in any other companies or so on, only then we may need cash. And there also our CFO has set the precedence that the bankers and the relationship with the bankers is strong, and they are coming in and are willing to provide any lines of debt or so on. So we don't think that I would go out for any sort of fresh equity kind of requirement for cash. In fact, on the contrary, I would think that this year we should be creating healthy cash flows for the company, just like we did last year. So last year our profit was only 65 crores, but our cash from operations was 111% of that. So this year I'm hoping that the profits would be stronger. So if you take the current quarter, which is, let's say, about 19 crores profit after tax, and you multiply it by 4 and assume that we at least continue to maintain that, we should be close to about 80 crores this year. And if we do efficient collections, we should be generating more cash than 80 crores this year itself. So I'm not worried about, cash flow because of the quality of business that we run and the way we are focused on collections and cash flow, because that's one report that I see every single day, if not every single week. And the management team, everybody understands that it's not just about revenues and margins, it is about cash flow. So we track it to that extent of granularity.
Okay, sir. That's it from my side.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rahul Jain from Dolat Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Congratulations on very strong execution. My question is, of course, you have alluded about this in various other queries. I just want to understand very broad key changes, good and bad, that you might have seen, versus the pre-pandemic, in terms of maybe demand acceleration or cut, maybe if you want to slice it in terms of vertical or market. Similarly, from a pricing scenario, how things have changed and how things have changed for you on the inventory cost side, and any competitive reaction which is very different and strange, which could change economics for us also. So if you could give a broad, flavor on these aspects.
Right. That's a fairly broad question. What I would say is that in terms of demand mix, you are clearly seeing that from those 10 key verticals that were contributing 76% of the revenue in the last quarter, where we did about 80 crores of revenue, right, in Q4, to now 90% of the almost 90 crore revenue from Q1. And that's a significant shift within a very quick period. And I would say that's not only because of the customers, but also because we had clearly identified that, right? So when we saw the lockdowns happening, or in February when we started working from home, to March where the international lockdowns were severe, to when India became completely locked down the last week of March, we were quickly agile and recalibrating ourselves. What do we do with our sales force? 80 plus people who are only full-time selling to customers. Where do we channelize their energies? And so we said we want to focus on these top verticals, and these are the verticals that are COVID resilient. So let us shift our execution focus completely and disproportionately on that, right? And therefore, our ability to win against competition or to win more budgets from the customers who are already onboarded, we were sharper in our execution on that, and therefore we've delivered the 90% contribution of revenue from those verticals. On the demand side, that is very clear. In terms of pricing, one strong mandate that I have is that we will never sort of try to sell on price. We will sell on value. Okay, so we sell on value, and on that value, I would say I'm ready to add more value to you, Mr. Customer, but I'm not ready to say drop my price. So the average CPCU that we have maintained through this quarter is a fairly resilient performance from our team, because when you are, let's say, going through April and May and numbers are looking low, the sales team and the management, if it is weak, right, we would say, okay, let's drop the price, let's drop the margin. We didn't let that happen. So I think the defensibility was there, and the belief was there that we are adding fundamental value. And if conversions are not happening and the advertiser has the spends, why don't you go on the non-CPCU model and still will give you value and engagements with the customers? Let's see what happens, and we can go back to the CPCU. So we have multiple products, we have multiple capabilities, and we are not letting go on the quality of value that we deliver to the customers, or therefore our ability to command a certain pricing. In terms of competition, I did mention that I have seen that competition has been impacted, and the first signs of competition being impacted is when they cut costs, they don't pay their people, or they, their talent is sort of starting to apply for jobs to Apple, right? And that is starting to happen in markets where we don't even exist. So we start getting, employees who are, senior level employees from competition who is writing into us and trying to say, hey, can we catch up? And we have seen that happen across US, we've seen that happen in Korea, we've seen that happen in Europe, we've seen that happen in India, Southeast Asia, and we are obviously very selective of who we can onboard and why and what incremental gains we'll have if we bring these kind of management team members, because they don't just bring their competence, they also bring their contacts, and therefore incremental business. So in terms of competition, I see that Apple is, from the lens of potential employees, clearly becoming the desirable company to be working for in the marketing tech, ad tech space. And in fact, somebody in our company was commenting qualitatively that how at one time any techie would want to work for, one of the top 4 IT services companies in India. Now it is becoming clear that anybody who's in marketing tech and ad tech wants to be at Apple. And I think that is something that we are extremely proud of. And we have not only done good financial performance, and no question has been asked so far on the culture aspect, which I gave a fair amount of commentary on, that we are also looking at how the employees will bond better together, perform better together, compete and celebrate better together, not just, collaborate. The collaboration in COVID-19 situation, working online from home, is already happening. But how do we build that additional edge of competing, winning, celebrating together? And we have launched the Apple Fun League, which is a strong Apple 2.0 culture, which is connecting people. So we are, like I said, the internal culture is becoming strong enough a pull factor, and even external competition related talent is getting attracted to work with us. And very soon, hopefully, you start seeing a lot of customers also behaving in a similar manner, that it should become by default that, if somebody is spending on mobile marketing, they should be asked the question, how come Apple is not part of your plan? And I think our goal is sustainable market leadership means that you are having the right market perception across all stakeholders and creating a pull factor. Anybody who thinks of mobile marketing, at least in India and other emerging markets, and hopefully globally in a few years' time, should see why is Apple not part of their spend. Similarly, if anybody is thinking of taking a job in in this field, they should be wanting to say that, okay, I want to somehow get to work for this company. And that's market leadership. The ability to defend your pricing and margins, that's market leadership. And I think we are playing a responsible part there. And that's why you see consistency. One could have taken a knee-jerk reaction in March end or April and May and said that, let's do deeper cost cutting or anything else. We didn't allow that nervousness to result into any nervous actions. Instead, we held our ground, hoping, let's see what happens in June. And I would say we were extremely fortunate that we ended June with the kind of run rates that have validated our stance and has built loyalty as well as greater commitments from our team.
Right. Anuj, it's just a follow-up. It's a follow-up on the same thought, if I may.
Sir, I'm so sorry, but we have participants waiting in the queue for their turn. Thank you. The next question is from the line of Manish Poddar from Nippon India. Please go ahead.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes,
you
you
are.
Hello.
Mr. Poddar,
Go
your
ahead.
line is
Go ahead,
on
Manish.
mode. Kindly go ahead with your question. Mr. Manish, your line is in talk mode.
Yeah. Oh. Hello.
Yes, sir. You may proceed.
Yeah. Sorry. There's some network issues out here. So, actually, just wanted to get your thoughts on two things. First is on the inventory cost line. Would that number with size and scale, come as a percentage to sales? Would you have significant, bargaining power up there?
See, look, I mean, when we talk about market leadership, we may have bargaining power along the way. The question is whether we exercise it to either sort of squeeze the supply side, or do we try and extract more value from the supply side? So I think we will see how we go about it. At the moment, our guidance remains that for this year and onwards, the trend line should be largely intact. And as we go and invest further, because you've got to see this as, it comes in the P&L as 100% expensed out. But we must never ignore the lens that the data and the inventory cost leads to valuable insights that the Apple platform would have, which becomes a invaluable data set or data insights set for the company, for powering the growth for the future. So, while the accounting standards have no ways of recognizing this asset into the balance sheet, this is actually a huge asset for the company. And when you see this line item, please assess it with that lens, that yes, it is fully expensed out, but it's also creating disproportionate value and the foundations for long-term growth. So, don't see it with the lens of only P&L and, margin expansion, but it's a strategic investment that we make on a recurrent basis to ensure that our data insights are deep. And specifically, if you look at India, we are talking about the vernacular strategy, going deeper inroads within India in tier 2, tier 3, rural areas, getting understanding of the next 300 million smartphone users who will necessarily come on board on smart screens in the next 2 to 3 years. So how do we make sure that we are ahead of the game and bringing our advertisers and demands to go deeper? So that will require continuous investment and deeper relationships, whether it's with the OEMs, whether it's the programmatic exchanges or the long tail of apps, or strategic assets like the Indus OS App Store or any other such sort of possibilities that we will continue to invest into.
So, Anuj, would it be fair that, let's say, on a like-to-like basis, our procurement cost would be lower, and that will be investing in, let's say, either building or either passing it out to the consumers or building our business more, across the verticals. But on a like-to-like basis, there are scale-led efficiencies which are there in the procurement cost.
Well, absolutely. I did mention that as a sustainable market leader position that we are constantly building towards, there will be opportunities for that, whether it is defending your margin or whether it is extracting more values for the same cost, and similarly with the customers, defending the price and looking at the greater value perception. So I think the emphasis is not only on the cost and the price, but on the value that you're extracting in each scenario, and that will define market leadership as a responsible player, which is respected by all stakeholders in the ecosystem, right? The suppliers should want to work with us, the employees should want to work with us, the customers should want to work with us.
Makes sense. Just one bookkeeping, if I may. What is the expectation for the tax rate for the full year? And why was the tax rate lower in Q1?
I would defer that to Kapil, please.
Sure.
The tax rate is lower because of the transfer pricing adjustments which have happened in India, and the other movement between the cost and the geographies we are operating in. So it's most likely the impact of the transfer pricing effect between all the group entities.
And what is the expectation for the full year?
The expectation is we should be having almost a similar tax percentage for the full year.
And when you say similar, it is this high single digit number, or the 20% odd run rate which you are going before?
No, it will be above double. It will be in early double digits.
Got it. Great. Thank you so much, and all the best.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, we'll be taking one question per participant. The next question is from the line of Venkat from 3 Sigma Financial. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity. Majority of my questions, all the questions are answered, but I wanted to congratulate Affle on completion of 1 year of listing and helping create wealth for investors, which I think was very important message that I wanted to pass on. Thank you.
Thank you. We take the next question from the line of Harit Shah from KR Choksey. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. My question has been answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, due to time constraint, that was the last question. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Anuj Khanna Sohum for closing comments.
Well, thank you everybody for the support through the first year of our IPO, and I'm very thankful to all the shareholders who have supported us through the anchor round, held their support through the year, and I'm looking forward to achieving greater credibility. And every challenge, especially COVID-19 when it presented itself, makes everyone nervous. But how we come out of that in terms of stable, consistent strategy together with our team and communication, I think that was where I was hoping to continue to strengthen the credibility that we established and the trust we established with the stakeholders. And I hope having done that with customers, with employees, this would also happen with the investors. And we are here for the long term. We are building the company to last. We've already been there for over 15 years. And the Affle 2.0 strategy is at least a decade, 2020 to 2029. So I'm looking forward to more conversations, discussions as we go along. Thank you very much for joining the call and for your continued support.